Hi there. It's March 15th, and we are on day 75 of our Through the Bible in 1 Year. And we'll jump over there. And I'm using the New Living Translation just for a while because it is a very accurate translation, and it's so easy to read. And since we're reading the Bible and not doing an in-depth study, it's a great version to just read because it reads very comfortably. So let's do that. 14 through 16 today on Deuteronomy. Here we go. Ceremonially clean and unclean animals. Now this is all just review of Numbers and Exodus. So, since you are the people of the Lord your God, never cut yourselves or shave the hair above your foreheads in mourning for the dead. They used to shave the heads bald, and they're so upset. Never shave the hair above your foreheads. Never cut yourselves. I wonder if that means piercings. That'd be interesting. Shave yourselves above your foreheads. You have been set apart as holy to the Lord your God, and he has chosen you from all the nations of the earth to be his own special treasure. Right. You must not eat any detestable animals that are ceremonially, easy for me to say, unclean. These are the animals you may eat: the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roe deer, the wild goat, the addax, the antelope, and the mountain sheep. Right. Yes, there's no birds on there, huh? You may eat any animal that has completely split hooves and choose the cud. Okay? Which are these? The ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle. Right. But if the animal doesn't have both, it may not be eaten. Eat split hooves and choose the cud. Okay? That means you can't eat horses. Okay? Horses don't have split hooves. Doesn't have both. Okay. So you may not eat the camel, the hare, or the larynx. They chew the cud but do not have split hooves, so they are ceremonially unclean for you. And you may not eat the pig. It has split hooves but does not chew the cud, so it is ceremonially unclean for you. You may not eat the meat of these animals or even touch their carcasses. Okay. They're big time on not eating pigs because, pigs have split hooves, but they don't chew cud. Pigs will eat anything. They will eat anything, and I mean anything that'll get in their mouth. So, they really are dirty animals, okay? And I love bacon, but they're dirty animals. Okay? Of all the marine animals, you may eat whatever has fins and scales. You got that? Fins and scales, not marine mammals. They don't have scales. You may not eat, however, marine animals that do not have both fins and scales. They are ceremonially unclean for you. That means dolphins, sharks. Okay. Sharks are fish, but they don't have scales. Whales. Okay. Those are mammals. Interesting, huh? You may eat any bird that is ceremonially clean. These are the birds you may not eat: the griffin vulture, the bearded vulture, the black vulture, the kite, the falcon, buzzards of all kinds, ravens of all kinds, the eagle owl, the short-eared owl, the seagull, hawks of all kinds, the little owl, the great owl, the barn owl, the desert owl, the Egyptian vulture, the cormorant, the stork, herons of all kinds, the hoopie, and the bat. Can't eat bats. And not birds of prey, okay? I want you to eat birds of prey, which is good. I have a special love for birds of prey. I like this one. All winged insects that walk along the ground are ceremonially unclean for you and may not be eaten. But you may eat any winged bird or insect that is ceremonially clean. Now the insects that were clean were locusts and grasshoppers. That's it. Okay? That's it. Am I eating those? No, thank you. You must not eat anything that has died a natural death. Yeah. You may give it to a foreigner living in your town. Oh, thanks. Or you may sell it to a stranger, but do not eat it yourselves, for you are set apart as holy to the Lord your God. You must not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. Yeah, that sounds kind of gross, huh? Okay. the giving of tithes. You must set aside a tithe of your crops, 1/10 of all the crops you harvest each year. Bring this tithe to the designated place of worship, the place the Lord your God chooses for his name to be honored, and eat it there in his presence. The tithe, you eat it? This applies to your tithes of grain, new wine, olive oil, and the firstborn males of your flocks or herds. Doing this will teach you always to fear the Lord your God. Now, when the Lord your God blesses you with a good harvest, the place of worship he chooses for his name to be honored might be too far for you to bring the tithe. If so, you may sell the tithe portion of your crops and herds, put the money in a pouch, and go to the place the Lord your God has chosen. When you arrive, you may use the money to buy any kind of food you want: cattle, sheep, goats, wine, or other alcoholic drink. You got that? Alcoholic drink. Then feast there in the presence of the Lord your God and celebrate with your household. And do not neglect the Levites in your town, for they will receive no allotment of land among you. All right? They have to take care of the Levites. At the end of every 3rd year, bring the entire tithe of that year's harvest and store it in the nearest town. Give it to the Levites, who will receive no allotment of land among you, as well as the foreigners living among you, the orphans, the widows in your towns, so that they can eat and be satisfied. Then the Lord your God will bless you in all your work, right? Always did, always will. Release for debtors. Something we all need, huh? At the end of every 7th year, you must cancel the debts of everyone who owes you money. This is how it must be done. Everyone must cancel the loans they have made to their fellow Israelites. They must not demand payment from their neighbors or relatives, for the Lord's time of release has arrived. The release from debt, however, applies only to your fellow Israelites, not to the foreigners living among you. Wow. I bet it was hard to get a loan if you're an Israelite, huh? Especially if there's only like a year left. There should be no poor among you, for the Lord your God will greatly bless you in the land he is giving you as a special possession. You will receive this blessing if you are careful to obey all the commands of the Lord your God that I am giving you today. The Lord your God will bless you as he has promised. You will lend money to many nations, but will never need to borrow. You will rule many nations, but they will not rule over you. Wow. I wonder if that's true today. I don't think so. Unless the new nation is America, right? I don't think so. But if there are any poor Israelites in your towns when you arrive in the land the Lord is giving you, do not be hard-hearted or tight-fisted towards them. Tight-fisted, I like that, towards them. Instead, be generous and lend them whatever they need. Do not be mean-spirited and refuse someone a loan because the year of canceling debt is close at hand. You had that? I just talked about that. If you refuse to make the loan and the needy person cries out to the Lord, you will be considered guilty of sin. Wow. Give generously to the poor, not grudgingly, for the Lord your God will bless you in everything you do. There will always be some in the land who are poor. Jesus said that too. You will always have the poor among you. This is why I'm commanding you to share freely with the poor and with other Israelites in need. Got it? Release of Hebrew slaves. Now, this is kind of weird that they had slaves. Huh? If a Hebrew sells himself or herself out to be your servant and serves you for 6 years, the 7th year, you must set that servant free. When you release a male servant, do not send him away empty-handed. Give him a generous farewell gift from your flock, your threshing floor, and your winepress. Share with him some of the bounty with which the Lord God has blessed you. Remember that you were once slaves in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. That is why I am giving you this command. All right. Now, if you're supposed to loan them if they're poor without doing any kind of credit check, so to be, and they still sell themselves into servitude. Interesting. Sacrificing firstborn male animals. You must set aside for the Lord your God all the firstborn males from your flocks and herds. Do not use the firstborn of your herds to work your fields, and do not share the firstborn of your flocks. Instead, you and your family must eat these animals in the presence of the Lord your God each year at the place he chooses. But if the firstborn animal has any defect, such as lameness or blindness, or if anything else is wrong with it, you must not sacrifice it to the Lord your God. Instead, use it for food for your family in your hometown. Anyone, whether ceremonially clean or unclean, may eat it, just as anyone may eat a gazelle or deer. But you must not consume the blood. You must pour it out on the ground like water. Right? We're big about that. Passover and Festival of Unleavened Bread. Right? In honor of the Lord your God, celebrate the Passover each year in the early spring, in the month of Abib. What is that? Abib. Observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto the Lord your God. Abib, the first month of the ancient Hebrew lunar calendar, usually occurs within the months of March and April. So the Jewish New Year is approaching, or is here, right? They still follow that. For this is a month in which the Lord your God brought you out of Egypt by night. Your Passover sacrifice may be from either the flock or the herd, and it must be sacrificed to the Lord your God at the designated place of worship, the place he chooses for his name to be honored. Eat it with bread made without yeast, unleavened bread, right? For 7 days the bread you eat must be made without yeast. As when you escaped from Egypt in such a hurry, eat the bread of suffering, so that as long as you live you will remember the day you departed from Egypt. Let no yeast be found in any house throughout your land for all those 7 days. And when you sacrifice the Passover lamb on the evening of the first day, do not let any of the meat remain until the next morning. Gotta eat it all right? You may not sacrifice the Passover in just any of the towns that the Lord God is giving you. You must offer it only at the designated place of worship, the place the Lord your God chooses for his name to be honored. Sacrifice it there in the evening, as the sun goes down on the anniversary of the Exodus from Egypt. Roast the lamb and eat it in the place of the Lord your God chooses. Then you may go back to your tents the next morning. For the next 6 days you may not eat any bread made with yeast. On the 7th day proclaim another holy day in honor of the Lord your God, and no work may be done on that day. All right? And they still practice this today. So, the Festival of Harvest. Count off 7 weeks from when you first began to cut the grain at the time of harvest. Then celebrate the Festival of Harvest. What's this note here? Also in 1616, it's Festival of Pentecost. Okay. Celebrate the Festival of Harvest to honor the Lord your God. Bring him a voluntary offering in proportion to the blessings you have received from him. This is the time to celebrate before the Lord your God at the designated place of worship. He will choose for his name to be honored. Celebrate with your sons and daughters, your male, female servants, the Levites from your towns, and the foreigners, orphans, and widows who live among you. Remember that you were once slaves in Egypt, so be careful to obey all these decrees. Right? The Festival of Shelters. So many festivals. You must observe the Festival of Shelter for 7 days at the end of the harvest season. After the grain has been threshed and the grapes have been pressed. Right. The festival will be a happy time of celebrating with your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, and the Levites, foreigners, orphans, and widows from your towns. For 7 days you must celebrate this festival to honor the Lord your God at the place he chooses, for it is he who blesses you with bountiful harvests and gives you success in all your work. This festival would be a time of great joy for all. The Harvest Festival. Each year, every man in Israel must celebrate these 3 festivals: the Festival of Unleavened Bread, Festival of the Harvest, and Festival of Shelters. On each of these occasions, all men must appear before the Lord your God at the place he chooses, but they must not appear before the Lord without a gift for him. All must give as they are able, according to the blessings given to them by the Lord your God. Justice for the people. Appoint judges and officials for yourself from each of your tribes and all the towns the Lord your God is giving you. They must judge the people fairly. You must never twist justice or show partiality. Well, they're doing that today, huh? Never accept a bribe, for bribes blind the eyes of the wise and corrupt the decisions of the godly. Let true justice prevail, so you may live and occupy the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You must never set up a wooden Asherah pole beside the altar you build for the Lord your God, and never set up sacred pillars for worship, for the Lord your God hates them. Right. So there you have it. Sacred pillars for worship. I'm not sure what that is. What if we do a quick search here? According to the Bible, Lord your God hates sacred pillars for worship. Sacred pillars are ways that the people mark and remember their encounters with the living God. They can be tangible, real physical objects, or more theoretical ideas, values, or beliefs that become touchstones throughout people's lives. The Bible also warns against making idols. I'm looking at this here, and the sacred pillars the Israelites built provide a cautionary tale for people today. As God is the sovereign creator, he has determined that designated how we can. It doesn't really say, but it just says here, never set up sacred pillars for worship. For the Lord your God hates them. I'll have to do some research on that, okay? So, that wasn't bad. That was rather enjoyable, wasn't it? So, what's going on tomorrow? Deuteronomy 17 through 20. And they're continuing. Never sacrifice sick or defective cattle or sheep or goats. Guidelines for a king. Gifts for the priests and the Levites. A call to holy living. True and false prophets. Yeah, I think they just killed all the prophets because Jesus accused them of that all the time. Cities of refuge. Concern for justice. Regulations concerning war. Well, that's a long one, huh? So, there you have it. That's Through the Bible in 1 year, day 75. And we're getting through it. We're getting through Deuteronomy. I'm not sure how much more Deuteronomy we have. March 17th, 18th, 19th. Wow. Deuteronomy is very, very long. And then we'll start Joshua on March 22nd. So we have until March 21st, 6 more days of Deuteronomy. So, but we'll get through it. It'll be fun. So, there you have it. Keep reading. Catch up on any you missed. You want to say that you did the whole Bible in 1 year. Okay? That's something you'll remember all your life. Okay? So, till next time, keep reading. See ya.